Rakan. A wise man once said, if you ever see a man wearing the head of a ferocious beast on his shoulder walking towards you, run for your life. Which wise man said that and when, you ask? Well, me. I said that. Just now. And you'd better take that advice if you don't want to get ripped to shreds by Rakan, the king of beasts and the monarch of fangs. This monarch is a complete menace. I mean, just look at this guy and think about this for a second. If the king of beasts is walking around with the head and skin of a beast, one of his subjects draped over his shoulder, how do you think he's going to treat humans? Not very nicely at all. He hates humanity and takes great pleasure in gruesomely tearing you guys limb from limb. And I say you guys because if Rakan is asking, I'm not a human like you. Thank you very much. Merciless and cruel, he is one of the two monarchs, along with Baran, who betrayed Ashborne, the original monarch of shadows. He would then later betray Baran by running away once they got overpowered by Ashborne, leaving him to die. You see, that's the thing. There's no honor in the wild, only survival, and the Monarch of Fangs truly exemplifies this law of the jungle. He has no mercy for any beings weaker than him, but, like a true predator, is not above turning tail and running away, or even begging for mercy when he realizes that he's outmatched. Just like he ran away from Jin-woo and then begged for mercy when he realized that he was no match for him. The Monarch of Fangs is a fighter who uses his immense speed, strength, ferocity, and regeneration to rip his foes limb from limb. When all these aren't enough, he can transform into a giant wolf to massively increase all his stats, as well as give himself access to even sharper claws and teeth. He's so powerful in this form that even the incomplete version was enough to overpower Thomas Andre, a national level hunter and one of the most powerful S-ranked hunters on the planet. Yogamunt. Yogamunt is the king of demonic specters and the monarch of transfiguration. I would also like to label him the monarch of common sense, because he was one of only two monarchs who declined fighting Jin-woo when Silad approached and tried to recruit them. He looks like a pretty old man, so I guess it's true what they say. Wisdom does come with age. Yogamunt doesn't feature in one-on-one conflicts very often, so the exact nature of his power isn't quite clear. What we do know is that he seems to have the ability to open a very large number of portals, allowing uncountable hordes of monsters to come through and destroy everything. If not for Jin-woo using Dragon's Fear, a very OP paralyzing spell gotten from the legendary dragon Kamish, he would have succeeded, and that would have been very, very bad. Before continuing our journey, I would like to ask you if you liked the video to like and subscribe. As you can see, our channel is still small, and any help on your side will help us to keep producing content. Baran. Baran is the king of demons and the monarch of white flames, and, as we all know, the number one rule of fiction is that anyone whose title is the Demon King in anything ever has to be insanely strong, and Baran is no exception. Jin-woo first runs into him, or rather a clone of him, in a training level known as the Demon Castle. This level was arranged across 100 floors, with the foes on each floor getting more challenging as the challenger ascends. Baran was the boss on the 100th floor. This Demon King showed up and gave Jin-woo a hell of a fight. Pun intended. He repeatedly killed Jin-woo's shadows before engaging him in a one-on-one duel, which our boy would have lost if not for Silad causing a distraction. By the way, how come that ship never sailed? She and Jin-woo would have been so sweet if you think about it. Although, she might not really exist, so I guess that might not be possible. But what if? Never mind. Let's get back to the topic. Anyway, the point is that Baran is a real badass. The original Baran fought Ashborne, lost, and was still mocking him even as he was about to die. He has an awesome character design, wields several blades and a lightning longsword, shoots lightning from his mouth, and rides a wyvern into battle. If you can think of a way to make him cooler, I owe you money. Beating Baran was no joke, but Jin-woo was able to pull it off by landing a punch that took his head clean off, which, in my opinion, is a very fitting way to end such a badass boss. Jin-woo got a ton of great loot from this battle as well. He got Baran's Thunder Longsword and Kaisel, the Wyvern, which remains Jin-woo's favorite way to get around. Legia. Legia is the king of the giants and the monarch of the beginning. I'm kinda sad about Legia, to be honest. We never got to see much of him and his abilities. And that's a real shame because just a few chapters earlier, several giants were causing serious mayhem in Tokyo, including one of them who was a skyscraper-sized uber giant, guarding the gate they came out of. No one could have even dared to stop them, and the entire city was being evacuated. I just can't help but wonder, if the giants were that scary, what's the king of giants like? Especially with a title like Monarch of the Beginning, what does that even mean? Alas, all we have are questions, but no answers. What we do know about him, though, is that at some point during the Monarch Ruler War, he was kidnapped and imprisoned by the rulers. He was then implanted with an essence stone that caused him to want to kill humans. As the king of the giants, we can assume that Legia possessed super strength and durability. He also displayed the ability to make life-binding contracts that will kill either party if they default. When Sung Jin-woo found him inside a gate, Legia tried to trick him with a shady deal, but our boy saw through it and defeated his weakened body. Silad. Silad is the monarch of Frost and the king of the Snow People, which also makes him the king of the Ice Elves. This monarch looks chill, but seems to have a burning hatred for the rulers and the monarch of Shadow, because out of all the monarchs, he put in the most work to track down Sung Jin-woo and end him before he could inherit Ashborne's full power. He started tracking Sung Jin-woo all the way from Jeju Island, agreed with Rakan to restart the war against the rulers, approached the other monarchs, urging them to kill Sung Jin-woo, and even went to Go Gun-hee's house to try and assassinate him. Seriously, this monarch has worked tirelessly to murder our guy, and he almost succeeded. With his powers and fighting skills, he was able to distract and trap Sung Jin-woo long enough for Rakan to sneak up behind him and land the fatal blow. If not for Ashborne, that would have been the end of solo leveling and the human race. Silad, as the Monarch of Frost, has ice powers. You know, like the ability to create ice, blizzards, freeze things, and other things of the sort. Tarnak. This dapper-looking monarch is the monarch of Iron Body and the king of monstrous humanoids. Despite the fact that he is overconfident and looks down on humans, Tarnak was one of the only two monarchs, along with Yogamunt, who had the common sense to refuse to attack Sung Jin-woo without Antares' help. Later on, when Antares eventually did appear, Tarnak joined him to attack the human world. Thomas Andre showed up to stop him, but Tarnak was like, "What? A mere human? Don't you realize you're in solo leveling, and someone with this snazzy fashion sense can't be easily beaten by the likes of you?" Well, he didn't really say that, but he didn't think Thomas Andre could beat him, is the point. What Tarnak didn't know, however, was that Sung Jin-woo's army was hiding inside Thomas Andre's shadow, ready to throw him the biggest surprise party of his life. Despite the fact that he transformed into his very awesome-looking spiritual body manifestation, he was defeated by the army, led by Belion and Beru. To be honest, I wish we had seen more of that fight. The character design on the spiritual body manifestation is so cool. The abilities would probably have been really interesting if we had gone to see them. Antares. Antares is the only monarch said to be able to match Ashborne in power. I'll be honest, when I heard that I was like, how strong can this guy possibly be? Well, when he showed up in the human world, we found out. He is not called the Monarch of Destruction and the King of Dragons for nothing. I mean, the guy levels cities like I level pancakes, which is very quick for your information. He's so destructive that Sung Jin-woo had to find a way to take him to a deserted island in order to stop Antares from destroying Canada. He is extremely fast, strong, and durable, to the point where none of Sung Jin-woo's attacks were able to do anything against him. If not for Sung Jin-woo's cunning strategies, which I won't spoil here, he definitely would have lost to Antares. As strange as this sounds, though, Antares can get even stronger than this. He can use his spiritual body manifestation to turn into a gigantic, world-ending dragon, to boost all his abilities even further. Antares is called the King of Dragons, but I think he could also apply for the position of the King of Snakes, cause he is cunning. Remember how we said Baran and Rakan betrayed Ashborne, leading Ashborne to kill Baran? Yeah, Antares, the same Antares who accepted Ashborne into the Monarchs in the first place, was behind that. A combination of brains and brawn, there is no one more fitting than Antares to be the leader of the Monarchs. Querehsha. Querehsha? 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 How the heck should I pronounce this name? Sheesh. Anyway, she's the queen of insects and the monarch of plagues. The only female monarch, Querehsha, is as beautiful as her name is confusing to pronounce. But don't be carried away by her good looks. This monarch of plague will kill you without a second thought. She, along with Rakan, was one of the first monarchs to agree to attack Sung Jin-woo when Silad asked, even without Antares' help. This means that for a monarch, she hates humans even more than the normal amount. She has the ability to control insects and insect monsters, reanimate and control dead corpses using insects, as well as inject her foes with deadly poisons. When all this fails, she can utilize her spiritual body manifestation that's not nearly as attractive, but way more deadly, to rip her enemies to pieces. Ashborne. I'm gonna try my best, but as we go forward, there are likely to be a ton of major spoilers, so viewer discretion is advised. That said, let's begin. Ashborne was the original monarch of Shadow, and kind of the reason for virtually everything Sung Jin-woo goes through. Ashborne is one of those tragic characters who continuously tries to do the right thing, but never gets rewarded and only continues to suffer. Before he was the monarch of shadows, Ashborne was actually a ruler, who are pretty much the mortal enemies of the monarchs. You can imagine the rulers as the angels and the monarchs as the demons. Not only was he a ruler, but he was the most powerful one, known as the greatest fragment of brilliant light. I'll try not to get into the weeds about the next part of the story, cause it's kinda complex and spoilerish. But what you gotta know is that at some point, the rulers decided to rebel against their creator, known as the Supreme Being. Ashborne was the only one who decided to stay loyal, but unfortunately, strong as he was defeated. Or so he thought. Maybe that's why he's called Ashborne, because, like a phoenix, he was reborn from the ashes. You see, right as he was about to die, he found out that the Supreme Being had hidden a power within him the entire time. On the brink of death, the power activated, and he was reborn as the Monarch of Shadows. Unfortunately for him, however, he was too late. The rulers had already killed the Supreme Being. Distraught at the betrayal of his former comrades, he decided to join the monarchs to wage war against them to restore balance. And that was going decently well, until he was betrayed by his new comrades. One cannot simply find some loyal comrades, I must say. You see, Ashborne was powerful, like really powerful, and the monarchs weren't very comfortable with the former ruler, who had now awakened powers that made him way stronger than most of them. Two monarchs, Rakan and the original Baran, tried to take him on. They got owned very badly. At this point, he realized that he had become a lonely, solitary being who would never be at home among either the rulers or the monarchs. Lost and without purpose, he sought a successor to pass his powers on to, who would continue his legacy. He came across the mage Antares, who created a system to train a potential successor to become strong enough to house his enormous power. And you know what? That's the same system that Sung Jin-woo used to grow in strength. Normally at this point, we would talk about his abilities, but he shares a lot of the same ones with Sung Jin-woo, who we're going to talk about next. Sung Jin-woo, the current Monarch of Shadows, aka Sung Drip Woo. Seriously, bro, I get that you gotta save the world and all, but do you have to look so slick when doing it? This guy is always dressed in the freshest clothes and shoes. You know, I have a secret theory that the reason it's so easy for him to take down the bad guys that are so tough for everyone else is that he has a secret stunning passive move on him all the time. I think the bad guys are just so in shock at how handsome this guy is that they can't even dodge his moves or defend properly. Seriously, this guy is definitely in the discussion for the top 3 coolest MCs in anything ever. Not just because of his looks and powers, but because of his storyline. Very few characters demonstrate the saying, zero to hero, like Sung Jin-woo. You see, Sung Jin-woo was originally an E-ranked hunter. To put that into perspective, your average E-rank hunter is just a bit stronger than the average person, and can even barely be considered a hunter at all. So, going into a dungeon full of monsters and goblins doesn't really make sense for them. But Sung Jin-woo had bills to pay, and wasn't interested in making sense. He was more interested in making sense. Anyway, with his father missing and his mother bedridden, he had to step up as the main breadwinner for his family. There's a saying that goes, you don't know the worth of a man by how he wins, but by how he loses. And that is the very true essence of Sung Jin-woo. At this point, he was a loser by every metric. Weak, Frail, poor, untalented, timid, you name it. Sung Jin-woo was every kind of loser. He was like a loser salad with a side of pathetic. Okay, now that was a bad joke, I get it. But anyway, Sung Jin-woo was a loser, is the point I'm making here. Despite this, he would risk his life going into dangerous dungeons, not knowing if he would make it out alive in one piece, time and time again, just to provide for his mom and sister. He was looked down on and ridiculed by many other hunters around him, even his friends at times, but he never gave up. That's why they say never judge a book by its cover. No one knew that timid and weak exterior held a resilient, determined, and resourceful spirit, the mind of a hero. When push came to shove and the chips were down, Sung Jin-woo showed who he really was. Without revealing too many spoilers, Sung Jin-woo and a party of hunters walked into a D-rank dungeon that turned out to be a trap. To put a long story short, most of the party died. The ones that did survive only did so thanks to Sung Jin-woo's quick thinking. At the end of the dungeon, when the survivors realized that one of them had to stay behind and sacrifice themselves so that the others could live, Sung Jin-woo volunteered to do it and get skewered like a shish kebab. It seems to be a theme with Monarchs of Shadows that the moment they're supposed to die is the moment they attain a new level of power, because it was after getting impaled by a giant sword that Sung Jin-woo gained access to the system, the unforgiving training program that would turn him from loser E-ranker to the most powerful hunter on the planet, and Ashborne's successor as the new Monarch of Shadows. Sung Jin-woo has a ton of powers and abilities, and to go through them all could probably end up being its own video, but let's breeze through them as quickly as we can, shall we? Sung Jin-woo, like Ashborne, has insane strength, speed, and durability, is highly skilled with bladed weapons, though he prefers double daggers the most. In the same way he and Ashborne were born from the brink of death, the Monarchs of Shadows also have the ability to revive defeated enemies as shadows at their service. The Shadows have complete access to all the abilities that the enemy had while alive, and can even improve on them, leading to many cases where the revived Shadows are even stronger than the original enemies that were defeated to make them. At first, Sung Jin-woo had a limit on how many Shadows he could hold at a time, but as he grew in power, that has stopped being the case, and he now has an entire army of Shadows at his beck and call. He can summon one or all of his Shadows on demand, as well as switch places with any of them. He also has access to a wide range of other miscellaneous abilities, spells, and weapons that he got from the system, like the ability to make healing potions that cure any ailment, stealth, telekinesis, stunning enemies into fear. Yes, he actually does have stun moves, jokes aside, empowering his Shadows, regeneration, critical strikes, immunity to poisons, and many more. He's likely one of the most powerful beings in existence and is truly a worthy successor to the position of King of the Dead and the Monarch of Shadows.